Thanks for coming. I don't think anyone saw this event happening a few months ago, but here we are. Obviously, the point of today is obviously for me to sort of answer your questions on the whys and the wherefores and give you a bit of context behind the decision, and then Paul will sort of give you his plan and vision and how he takes the club forward. So, just to begin from my perspective, obviously, we as a family, it's been one of probably the biggest honors of our life as individuals in a family to own this football club and run this football club. And while not everything is worked out to plan, and we haven't done all the things that Paul Casson's big mouth said he would do, I think we can, I can hand over heart sit here today and say we did everything with the best intention, and, per what's happening now, did so with the club's best interest at heart. And, hopefully this isn't the end of our relationship with the club. I mean, we will no longer have any sort of financial stake in it or ownership in it, but, it's something that I know my mother and father would love to come back 3 or 4 times a year and come to games and, sit in corporate hospitality and enjoy the moments. Now that our jinx is gone, you guys will get to the 4th round of the FA Cup or, win the FA Trophy this year. So, it's over the last, obviously, 18 months or so, as everyone knows, it's kind of been an ongoing trial for us, just dealing with the 3rd or 4th manager back, whichever one he was, and then the trials and tribulations of last season. But so we honestly got to the end of last season, and I personally was exhausted, and my father was, how can I say it, disillusioned with everything. But we didn't really want that to be sort of the note we went out on, and so we said, what, let's just give it one more go. Let's see if we can kick it back on again, and see what we can do. And so let's begin the process in May to find the next manager, and I think mission accomplished on that front. Finding a guy and a team who have all the talent as a management team in the world, can take this club forward, have brought a style and a passion for football that I think we all enjoy and can see, and hopefully now can develop a bit of stability to then kick on in the second half of this season. As we got through the summer and started this season, I think for me personally, I just got to the point where life, you got to start making certain decisions based on where your life is, right? And as much as I love it here, I don't see myself as a sort of born and bred Barrovian and not going to be here for 50 years. And so at 35 years old, it was kind of like fork in the road to maybe go back home. Anyway, so long story short, I mean, I think is now's the right time for us to hand the club back to the town, because we want it to be in a position where it sort of hits March, April, May next year with a new team in place, hitting the ground running, plans in place. Ian knows his budget and can move forward confidently, knowing that he's got the right team in place around him. Whereas if we kept hold on to it, we wouldn't have made any plans to improve the ground. We don't know what we would have done in the January window and everything like that. So it feels a bit weird to do it towards the end of October, but I think the more that we think about it, it just feels more natural, especially because we have Paul and the other directors who, can keep the momentum going with Ian and the team. So I don't know if you have any introductory remarks, or if you want to go right to questions.
I think I'll. Are we working? Yeah. I think I'll make an opening statement if I can, just to sort of introduce myself and have a chat to you guys and just sort of set out how this has come about. Firstly, thank you for coming. I don't think I've ever seen the crossbar as full. If we're going to do this, I need all your guys' support. for me, and this is no slight on Andrew or his father, it's about re-engaging with the town again. I need you guys more than ever, and I'm going to need help to carry out this role. And as we go through tonight, you know, you'll see what I mean. The last few days have been a whirlwind, as you can imagine. The news only broke Wednesday. I only knew about it from Saturday. I've had so many. I've been on holiday. It's been half term. I've had so many messages on my phone, so many calls. I've tried to get back to everyone. Apologies to anyone who sent me an email. I've not got back to any emails yet. You'll have got my out of office, but so many people coming forward, offering the support, saying they want to get back involved with the club again. This is what we need. You know, Ian Rainford sent me a text. He said, listen, the maintenance guys are ready. The volunteers are ready again. They've been sending him texts saying, when do we start again? And this is what I need. I need volunteers. And it's not just volunteers on a maintenance side. We're going to come on to the task that, yeah, I am interim chairman and I've got two roles to deliver this club to new investors, but also to keep this club running to the end of the season. And that we are going to need help. In terms of the investment itself, it is an interim role. I spoke to Mr. Casson, Paul Casson, on Saturday night. He phoned me after the Chorley game, to be fair, and he seemed quite upbeat. Upbeat considering the result, and he then phoned me later on that evening, and it was a Paul Casson I'd never witnessed before. A very emotional Paul Casson, because Paul Casson loved this club. He was a supporter, and for him to hold his hand up and say we're out was probably very difficult. I was on loudspeaker. Stephanie was there as well, and I think it took a lot for him to. And from Paul's point of view, he considers that the FA Cup was a money spinner, and because we've not achieved anything in 4 out of the last 5 years, he sees that as a personal failure. And I told him not to be. You know, the money that they've invested in this club, they have given everything. And I've seen the finances on a close basis for the last 3 years, day to day. You know, I've done this role now for 3 days. They did that role for 4.5 years, and I know the stresses it's brought me over 3 days. So, you know, personally, I'd like to say thank you to the Cassons for what they've done for Barrow football, because I've seen what it does take out of you. It's about moving forward now, and we've got to do that in a respectful way. You know, it's not about coming in, changing this, changing that. The message I said, especially to Ian, you know, it's business as usual. We're going to carry on. We're going to carry on. We're going to, you know, carry on Paul's legacy here, and we're going to hand this club over to, you know, my role is to find investment, find new owners, and it's trying to find that right mix. I think I'm going to stop there for maybe the Q&A to start. You know, fire away with any questions. There's a bit more that I want to say, but I think I'll probably let it come out in the Q&A rather than just keep on talking. Go ahead.
Right, how will we pay the wages till the end of the season?
Good question.
Right, I think I better do a bit more talking. Paul Casson's coming for a certain degree of criticism, and you know, all this, where's the new stadium? And my view to Paul was, you almost had too much success too soon, and you invested everything in the playing squad. And I'm coming on to your question now, Steve. Essentially, this club lost on average £800,000 a season. And obviously, Andrew made his statement earlier right at the start of the season. He was cutting the budget, and the budget has been cut, but there's still a loss, and that's my job. I'm here to see this through to the end of the season and make sure that the wages are paid. Now, obviously, part of that is finding investment to come into the club, and people aren't daft. You know, Paul is giving the club back to the town, yes, but obviously he's giving it because people have got to come and put their money in to sub that loss to the end of the year. So the wages will be paid. In terms of the investment, obviously this has only happened this week, you know, and out of respect to the Cassons, I've not spoke to anybody about investment until Wednesday. And it was half term, I was on holiday, I made 2 tentative calls, and from those calls, I've probably secured 40% of the investment that we need. And some of that money could start to come in immediately. So we're rolling.
we're starting. The problem that I've got is, which we'll come into in later on, is it's a jigsaw. How do we put this investment together? Who is the investment going to come from in terms of what do you guys want? And I really want to work closely with you at the Trust, because you represent a good demographic of this football club. And we've not had a meeting yet. It's your AGM tomorrow, but I want to sit down with you guys, because out of those 2 tentative phone calls that I've had led on to one other phone call, and there's someone who wants to take the whole lot. Do we want it? Do we want it? Now, don't get me wrong. This is very, very early days, and it could be a BSer. It could be someone time wasting, and we've always got to bear that in mind. Don't forget, a bird in the hand, is it worth more than 2 in the bush? I've got 40% of investment here. If I start saying, oh, there's someone that might want to take the club, I'm going to lose that 40% because he's going to say, on your bike, I was here with the money and now, I'm not. So we've got to be very, very careful. If you're looking at someone taking the club, it's a longer term thing. The thing we don't have here, the commodity we don't have, is time. Your first question, how are we going to pay the wages? Exactly. And that's why I want to sit down with you guys and chat about what sort of mix. My vision I put over to Paul is that when we find investors for this club, I want fans, it's one of the questions, I want fans to be able to buy some proportion of the shares, because it's how I believe this club's going to connect back with the town. I want to have an AGM here every year. I want to lay the accounts to you so you can see the position. I want you to be able to vote on things, and I want, what you'll get with me is transparency, clarity. There won't be any, if you ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. And, that anyone who knows me from Hornby's accounts, he knows that's how I roll. So I hope that sort of goes somewhere to answer your question, Steve. There will be investment coming in immediately, but we need to get this picture, we need to get this jigsaw right. And that's something I'd like to sit down with. It's your AGM tomorrow. I'm going to gate crash if that's okay. I'd like to come, I'd like to chat to the members about this. I really want you involved. Like I said at the start, I need help. I'm not God. It's not for me to decide how this club's going to be put together. It's up to you. What sort of club does Barrow want? Do you want one owner again? Do you want, a mix of business investors coming in and some part ownership of fans? That's how I see it.
Joyce, as a response to that, thanks for as probably as much of a full answer as you could possibly give at the point.
Yeah, it is early days. But
Yeah,
in terms of,
I understand that.
Ian sat over there, and in terms of paying the wages, I think, from early stages where we're at with investment, we're probably good till the end of January time.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So who actually owns the club once you take over?
Yeah. So in terms of like, how a company works, a company is owned by its shareholders, and the shareholders appoint the directors to run the club. The directors, of which Paul, Stephanie and Andrew are directors, they are in the fullness in this process are going to resign. But there's practicalities. They've got to get me signed on the bank as a signatory. Now, if they resign and then I go to the bank and try and get signed on, who's going to sign me on? So those guys have to stay on as directors for a very short period till we get practical things out of the way. In terms of the shares are still owned by Paul Casson, and those shares will be transferred to the new owners. Once we decide on this jigsaw on who the new owners are going to be and who's going to have what stakes, those shares will go from Paul Casson to whoever.
No, you just answered it.
Oh, brilliant.
Will there be a cost of transferring those, or are they being transferred free of charge?
No, those shares will be transferred free of charge.
Unless you want to charge something for it.
Yes, Ray.
Yes. When Paul came in the last time, when Mr. Keane was giving up the role, it was a members' club, but the members weren't sufficient to sustain Barrow A.F.C. Do we want to go back to that forum, or do we look further afield? Depending who the big investor is and what's his intentions at the end of the day, could be a bit of a dynamite. But we know that as a members club, this club didn't work.
think you've got two things there. You're dead right. That's the first thing I thought when this person came out of the woodwork, and it's someone connected to someone that I know. So in terms of his credibility, you know, I don't know him personally. You know, those things need to be looked into more. And you know, what is his intentions? Is it to build a supermarket next to Asda? No, I think you're right though. I think a total fans-owned company, it's hard to get a decision. You know, and then if you've got someone where we need to get this to, because obviously as an investor, like Steve asked the question, how the wages are going to be paid, because he knows there's a drain. With investors coming in, part of my role to keep us going to the end of the season is cutting that drain. Not cutting the drain to the end of the season, because that's how we've geared up, that's how we've set up this year. But we've got to look at cutting the drain going forward, and there's certain things we can do. You know, things happen, and Paul put in his statement, Paul, will probably learn from some of the mistakes that we've made. But you know, if you consider part of the drain this year has been paying off former managers and players, and you know that'll add a cost to it. So we can certainly get it back to something that looks, you know, nearer a break-even model, which I think you've got to for investors coming in. And then if you've got investors stroke fan ownership, then one investor can put the hand up and say, I'm going to stick a few more quid in now because I want to sign A, B and C. But at least, as long as he's not putting money in to cover costs. And I think that's where we need to be. We need to get to a self-sustainable model, but where we've got investors who can come in and stick their hand in the pocket, but we've also got some method of fan interaction.
How realistic is that from your point of view?
I think that's the most realistic formula.
It happens in Scotland. If you look at Hearts or Motherwell, they've got a combination of both.
Yeah, and that's where I'd like us to be. I don't really think... In terms of the board, you know, I'm going to be trying to form a new board over time, and that will be a mixture of the investors that come in and or others. You know, someone may be able to bring a lot to the party, but we know money. You know, they might have contacts, you know. And, you know, I'm going to mention the rugby here. What Steve Neal has done at the rugby has been a model I want to replicate here. He's brought people on that board with roles, responsibilities and accountability, so that everyone has a certain designated task what to do. It's not a one-man show. You can't do it on your own. You know, I run a business. You know, it's going to be hard in the short term until I get the right people on board. But you know, in terms of you know, we need this to be a workable model. Yes.
If I came to you in your professional role and I showed you potential accounts to say, what do you think about me investing in this business? Honestly, what would you say?
How do you mean it? If you came to me and said,
You have a set of accounts, end of year accounts.
for Barrow football,
Ignore the one-offs of the payoffs, etc., of managers, players, whatever. Bottom line, profit and loss. Obviously, it's not too good now. What would your honest opinion be as a reputable accountant, probably one of the better ones in the area?
probably.
What would you say about the future of it as an investor? Is it worth investing?
I think as an investor, if you're a fan, you're investing because you want to be a shareholder, you want to help Barrow football. If you talk about investing as a return, you'll never get a return from football. You know, you'll never get a return, but we're not going to go down the tubes tomorrow. You know, you'd put your money in and you'd be part of something. You'd be part of something going forward. You'd have your opportunity to see what was going on behind the scenes. But it's never, you know, you're never going to get a dividend income out of it. But at the end of the day, the shares are going to be tradable. You know, if you buy some shares and you think 10 years down the line, what my theory is, and some of the other bigger clubs operate like this, is that if you want to get rid of your shares, let's say you buy £5,000 worth of shares, for example, and then in 10 years' time you don't want them, the club have a register here. There'd be a waiting list of people who wanted to buy into shares, or if you knew someone who wanted to buy your shares, you could go and sell them. So the shares are fully tradable. You know, it's not as easy as selling shares in, say, BT, but you would be able to get your money back.
What's the difference between shares and debentures? Well,
It's very similar, to be honest, Ray. The debenture holders own the rugby club because they are the owners. The shares just mean that, you know, they're easily tradable.
But they have the power, don't they? The
Yeah.
beneficiary owners at the rugby
And
have the power
the
to
share-
make the decision.
The shareholders would have the power here. It's just probably what you might find a mix, and that's what I want to speak to the Supporters Trust about, is what sort of mix do you want? You know, 70-30, 60-40, you know, 80-20. What would work? Yes, sir.
What level of football do you think we can sustain in this town?
I genuinely believe, and this is my job, this is what I do, I genuinely believe I can make some cuts here to get us near a self-sustainable model, keeping full-time football on a budget pretty near to what Ian Everett's got now. And I think, you know, we're pretty much mid-table at the moment. We've you know, don't get me wrong as well, it's a young squad. It's a squad that's only come together. You know, let's not mention Charlie, but let's mention them anyway. You know, Charlie were a team that had barely changed a couple of players at the end of last season. They were a team that had been together a long time. The last 2 years, we've made wholesale changes to our playing personnel. And then, obviously, this year, we've come together, and there's Hartlepool, we miss a penalty. You know, we miss a penalty at Solihull. We've had some easy misses, to be fair. We should be higher up the table than we are. So, and that was on a reduced budget. It all depends upon the type of person that you're getting, the type of mentality, and the manager. And I think it's essential that we keep Ian Evatt. He's the best manager I can remember here for a long time. And he's exactly the type... He's exactly the type of manager I wanted. Where Ian Evatt was 5 minutes into his job, he was stood there with a notebook. Within about 2 seconds, there was a decision that went against us. The notebook was thrown in the dugout and he was shouting. And that's what we needed. You know, A.D. Pennant was a lovely guy. And obviously I was involved in the recruitment process with Ian. You know, and we wanted someone like Ian Evatt. Someone who the players respected, but someone who was a shouter. And... you know, it's essential that we keep Ian. I think we can maintain full-time football in Barrow. I wouldn't be doing this role if I was wanting to take us backwards. It was essential that we didn't do a Chester or we didn't do a Dagenham. You know, we've lost our investor, we've got to get rid of all our players. You know, we're going part-time, but we're going to find a load of locals in the team. You know, it's essential that we don't do that. There's an element to getting maybe a bit of a different mix. You know, obviously Ian's working with the under-21s with Craig. It would be nice to see some of them come through. It would be nice to see, you know, we've had Nathan in the team. It would be nice to see some more locals. I think we might have to maybe look at introducing some more, maybe to change the mix a little. And I think that brings its own interaction. You know, the signing of Nathan Waterson was gold dust, I thought, at the time. Yes, sir.
You talk about shares. If I was to buy a share now, how much would it cost me?
I'm not telling you because you're going to times it up. I think what my idea was to sell them off in realistic clumps. You know, when we're talking about a fan's percentage to come in, and I think I'm not going to start talking about percentages. But I think we could probably sell them off in sort of £500 to £1,000 lumps for the fans' percentage, because I think that would be affordable.
All right, if I bought £1,000 worth, how many shares would I get?
I'll come back to you on that. Yes, Jim.
Have you had much conversation and the thoughts of the manager and the management team, how they think?
Yeah, I've had a conversation with Ian Evatt. It got a bit misconstrued because Jamie ran off to training and told him the story first. Only joking, Jamie. No, I think it came as a bit of a surprise to Ian, but obviously we've had a good conversation. We've had a good couple of conversations now, and I think Ian's on board with the new structure. We've talked about the potential at the club. We've talked about the players. You know, we've talked about the game tomorrow. I think Ian's told the players they all seem fairly relaxed about the situation. So I think from that point of view, it seems quite sad really, because the transition into the new period is going too smoothly for Barrow. You know, we're waiting for a bump in the road yet. But no, everyone seems to be on board. The directors have taken it well. I think the Cassons, I spoke to Paul Casson today. He was giving me tips for speaking to the radio. You know, so I think things are going pretty well from all walks of life. Yes, sir.
So, am I understanding correctly from what you said thus far that Paul Cass isn't looking to recoup anything from his investment so far, but rather stop?
All Paul Casson is recouping from this is my telephone number, and I still expect the Saturday night calls.
And a follow-up to that, is it from now?
From now.
That's it, there's a line under the money put in by...
There's a line in the sand now, there'll be no further money put in. Yes.
Much has been said about improving the ground. What is your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was speaking to a structural engineer today about how we're going to put... No, I wasn't. My role is very much an interim role. I'm going to deliver this solution to you for the new investment, and I'm going to keep the club running till the end of the season, till the new investors and the board are in place. At that time, they'll assess if I'm still needed in whatever capacity. I was just saying to the Evening Mail earlier, if they don't want me as a director or whatever, I'm still a fan. You know, I'll still remain a sponsor or the club accountant or whatever capacity. But in terms of infrastructure to the ground, that's a topic I won't be talking about just now. Yes.
What specialist knowledge do you think is required to run a football club in the modern era? Because it's clear that mistakes have been made and has been put up in that regard. But what expertise and knowledge do you think you need to run a football club in the modern era?
Football now is a 365-day-a-year business, and it's about, you know, this isn't my role, but going forward, it's about this place as a facility. It's about, like, don't get me wrong, it could be my role if we get this mix right and I remain on the board. It very much is my role. But this 3G facility next door, you know, we need to run with that. This could potentially bring in 100k a year, but it doesn't stop there. What we're going to do with that 100k? We're going to give it to Ian Everett to put into the playing squad, or are we then going to spend that 100k? Are we then going to spend that 100k and maybe get some sort of finance to rebuild some facility here? Look at Oldham's new stand, you know, a gym, a restaurant. It's about making the most of everything you've got on your footprint, and that's how I speak about roles, responsibilities. You know, we're talking about, you know, look at Barrow and Wood with the academy, how much they're getting per kid. You know, they're absolutely rolling in it. You know, we need to take all these opportunities and run with them, but that's why I need help on the board. The 3G pitch is a project. It needs running with. You know, it needs someone taking it by the scruff of the neck. We're dealing with a council, we're dealing with a football foundation, and, you know, one man cannot do everything. You know, and I think Andrew's found that, you know, and sometimes it's frustrating dealing, you know, you've got a match day to deal on a Friday, and you know, you're dealing with a council, and that's a project that definitely will bring in revenue to this club, but you know, it needs running with.
For those tabulating at home, he's already promised you a 3G pitch, a gym, and a restaurant.
What do you think we should call the restaurant? Casson's.
Paolo's.
Yeah. Yes, Ray.
You did reference to Steve Neal and the good job he's done for the short space of time down all this. Do you see yourselves having a liaison with the rugby and drawing on one another's expertise to forward both clubs?
There's always been this debate, hasn't there, with the rugby, you know, about ground sharing and sharing expertise. We are two very different clubs. I think from in the short term, all I'm going to do is maybe take a bit of the lead about what they've done, you know. But what they're doing, one thing I wanted to speak to you about tonight was commercial. You know, commercially, we've not been doing great. And again, it's no slight on the owners. It's just because we've got a millionaire owner. Whereas the rugby, it's one for all for one. You know, I look at Facebook over the last few days, how they've been knocking sponsorship out of the park. You know, they've got the Furnace Building Society on board, they've got Hartley's Restaurant. There's a new sponsor every day announced. And that's something that, you know, us guys, you know, we've got a board meeting, you know, tomorrow morning. That's one thing I need to focus on. On Monday, we're hitting the streets, commercial sponsorship. Barrow A.F.C. are coming to your business. Yes, Chris?
I keep hearing this talk about the rugby, but what happened to them during the season where they nearly went bust? So why is that an example to follow?
I think you're talking about last season where there was money lost. I think Steve Neal's come in since then, and what he's doing is like post the loss. So I think it's always hard when accounts are presented, etc. They're always historically looking, and obviously the new board's in place and they're presenting a loss, but it was on sort of previous management.
The thing that we could do is, Paul, is more people coming through the gates. We don't get them.
We could, Margaret, you know, and
It's a shame, and they get more at the rugby because I've been to both of them all my life.
No, they don't.
you know, the gates average about 1,200 on each, you know, and the rugby can drop down to maybe 900, and you know, look at Sutton last year. I think we got 670 in on a rainy Tuesday night. You'd always love more people through the gates. You know, if I stay on long term, it's about making Holker Street a venue. You know.
I mean, when there's any glory, they all go, but they don't come the next week.
That's no response.
But you know, I don't know what people think. You know, I'm talking about, you know, Holker Street as a venue. You know, I was chatting to someone the other day, and he said if there was more food options, you know, they might have come longer with the kids. They might have come an hour before kick-off. I look what Salford have done just with basic cut-out containers. They've got street food. You know, ideas. I don't know. But would it get more people through the doors, making it a more family experience? You know, someone's going to mention toilets now. But you know, let's stick to the knitting. You know, we're here to deliver a solution, you know, in the short term, get us to the end of the season, and we're here to make sure we keep on running.
So who's helping you in the short term? Like, is there any other directors currently on the board? Or?
Yep, the board at the moment, it's myself. We've got Russell Dodd. Russell Dodd does a massive amount of work. Russell is massively important to this football club in terms of the FA rules that he knows, about the signing of the players, about the travel. You know, I would be lost without Russell Dodd. I spoke to all the directors after the announcement was made just to make sure they were all on side. We've got Sid Blaine. Sid, very involved with the National League. He's giving us a heads up on what the National League are saying about the situation at the moment, how they're treating other clubs. He's been very involved in the training facility at Hotwood and getting Ian everything that he needs. And then we've got Jamie Reid. Jamie Reid was probably, you know, Paul's right-hand man when he came into this club, and Jamie has agreed to stay on. Jamie said he's made a lot of friends in the town. Jamie, wake up! My phone must have rang 20 times on the first day, 18 with Jamie Reid.
Is he one of the 40%?
Yeah, 39 he is, Chris. He said, Kenny Dalglish's next door neighbour, he said she's putting in, what did you say, Jamie? She's Panamanian and beautiful, and you're persuaded to put in... They're the breaks.
Down at 20%.
But no, Jamie's looking at taking a more involved role in the club, and that's something we'll maybe talk about tomorrow.
Just to get back, so is that money you said is currently what's in now can get to January with projected gates? Is that what you're saying? To the end of January?
Not really, no. I've sort of projected it out, which I had to do pretty quickly, and with sort of projected gates, average commercial, we're going to be on a cash burn every month, and obviously it's for me to get investment quickly to sort of prop up that cash burn, and obviously that investment is going to pay for the club, and then in turn the new investors will have plans going forward. Yes, sir.
So we don't have a lot of time for this?
No, we don't have time. Like I said, time's the commodity we don't have, and that's why I need to speak to the trust quickly. You know, and I keep saying the trust because I think you guys represent a good portion of the supporters here, and you guys, I want feedback. You know, this is a forum. I want feedback from you guys about how you want your club structured going forward. Come and talk to me. Do you want one owner? Do you think I should, if I pursue this guy at all lengths who wants the whole club, I'm going to lose other people, and that could put us in jeopardy. So that's the sort of the situation I've got to play off. But what sort of club do you want?
But do you now know sort of, I know I don't know if you have in your head, but is there a drop dead date now in your mind where you need to have whatever the jigsaw is proposed to look at? Or?
I think it's piecemeal. I know by the end of November I need an amount of money. But what I was just saying then is that I know that from the investment I've got at the moment, I'll have that money probably to the end of January. But then if this is the quandary situation as well we have as well. I've made 2 phone calls and tentatively, just in the half-term week, and we've got 40%. What if we drop off the end of a cliff and I've been extremely lucky and I don't get any more than the 40%? Unlikely, but it could happen. It's a sort of situation now. Do we open up to fans now and say, listen, these are the shares? This is what I want feedback on. They say, this is the shares, this is the value. Do you want to buy in to give us maximum time? And then if there are other business investors around there, the table's open to them as well to come in and buy those shares. Do we open it up now? Do we wait? If we open it up right from day one and say the shares are available to supporters, we totally spook off this other guy who might buy the whole thing. Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? So it's almost playing a bit of Russian roulette with which way forward, but that's my job.
Well, could we buy shares, and if this guy come in and bought a load of shares, he'd still have the monopoly anyway, wouldn't he?
I think he's wanting the whole thing, Ray. But obviously, till we have a meeting, we never know. Yes, sir. There's sort of 2 of them. One's local, one's not local. But I think the one not local is northwest based, and he would provide the cash. Yes.
Talks about taking the advice of the trust and the fans, but ultimately is it your decision whether we go down a single owner route or a consortium route?
It will be the board's decision, but obviously we're going to be massively led. We're not going to decide and say, we're going to go down one owner because he's come and he said, there's the cash, there you go, and I say, right, job's done. Because it could be the worst thing for the club in the living history. We might have sold it off to like the guy who bought Leyton Orient before the current owners. It could be a disaster. So we've got to make sure that we do our due diligence on this guy. We've got to make sure he's got the cash. That's the main thing. He could waste all our time. We could get to the end of January and boom. Yeah.
How much do you need to survive till the end of the season?
That's a number, isn't it? Obviously, we are having a cash burn month by month, and there is a chunky number there to survive to the end of the season. We're still, I did a primitive cash flow on an iPad. I've only really been looking at the numbers for 2 days. So for me to come out and say a definite number right early doors, yes, sir.
What is the position now, and what will it be in the future for the club scouting for new players?
Yeah, I was going to say I felt like I was the manager then. Maybe Ian could elaborate at some point, but Paul Ogden was on board this season. He's been looking at players, suggesting players. Ian's got his own contacts. He's got his own scouts. He goes to watch games. We're still very much where we were at the start of the season in players being recommended to us. Yes, Chris.
Still, the outside shot, this team gets promoted to the Football League, and then you instantly get £1 million.
It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, I joked to Paul Casson on Sunday. He said, "You know what's going to happen? You're going to get the 5th round of the FA Cup, get £1 million and get promoted." I said, "Yeah, we could do." But it's a lot of the sod, isn't it? But who knows?
How well do you know these 2 people?
These 2 people about the bank, I don't know them at all. They've been recommended to me by someone that I do know. Now, it could be a wild goose chase. I'm told that they've tried to buy another football club before and it wasn't successful. I've told that they've got businesses, one of which is worth about £30 million. Another business was sold recently for 15 million. But who knows it? It's easy to say these things. I've been,
you could call me a cynic. I am a bit of a cynic. You know, I've been involved in people buying businesses in the past. You know, I was involved in one about 3 years ago, and we'd done all the due diligence, we'd done all the checks, and you know, everything was going well, and it was going well till the guy came to hand over the money, and then we found out he didn't have any. So you know, it pays to be cynical. You know, words are easy. Look at Michael Knighton juggling the football on the pitch at Old Trafford. You know.
As long as it's not Frankie Ball, we'll be all right.
Don't forget, this is still very early days. You know, I've only made 2 phone calls. You know, next week I've got meetings lined up. Hopefully, you know, there's one guy who's out of the country till later on in the month. There's lots and lots going on. You know, that one other option that I was thinking of was, you know, that there's some people who are keen to invest but maybe don't really want the involvement. You know, so in terms of they're willing to put a lump in. But you know, because it's Barrow football and they want to help and support it, but they don't want to maybe stick their head above the pavement and say, you know, because of, you know, it is, you know, I've been away on half-term holidays and spent half the time on the phone. It's involved. It does get you. So.
Is there an advantage to these people running businesses coming in and making investments in the club or financially to them, or is it beneficial to them to do that?
I think anyone who invests in football have got to potentially love what they do. You know, in terms of, you know, they want to invest in Barrow football. Business investors do give you that much of a heads up because obviously they know other business people. They help with a commercial sponsorship. They'll help bring people through hospitality. They run their own businesses, and football is a business. They've got ideas. They've maybe got access to capital. You know, so bringing business people on, there's an intrinsic benefit to the club. What they get out of it, you know, potential exposure. You know, I wouldn't say they'd maybe do it though for any benefit, Ray. If they did it through sponsorship, you'd get a tax allowance, but obviously you wouldn't get any allowance on buying the shares. Yes.
Andrew said that he's leaving as of tomorrow's game.
Yeah.
Who runs the club day to day after that? Because that's obviously a massive thing to keep moving.
There's going to be a period of handover. You know, we're having a board meeting tomorrow about that, about who runs the match day, about what people do here in terms of the staff, in terms of, I keep using these words, but roles, responsibilities, so I know, so I get a sort of a list of tasks. But I'm going to shake that up as well, because like I say, I want us to, from Monday morning, like say we're hitting the streets, we're going out there, you know, and I talk about the rugby again. You know, what Keith Holt did at the rugby, he's not particularly a salesman, but he just went and knocked the doors and got the commercial money in, and that's what we need to do. But people have got to realise now, we've no millionaire owner, and every penny counts. You know, we've got empty spaces of ground boards out there. We've still got half a season left. You know, a 250 quid ground board pays, you know, half a player's wage for a week. Just let's go and smash it. You know, but people have got to realise that we need you. Yes, sir.
Getting income in is one thing, and you mentioned cuts before to stop money going out. What are your short-term plans in terms of making cuts?
We've already made some provisional cuts. In terms of this year, we've like I mentioned, we've sort of cash flowed out a loss position, which, you know, obviously the playing budget's massive. You know, and those players are contracted players, so that there's not any cuts that come in there. In terms of going forward, you know, we need to make it look for the 19-20 season self-sustainable. So the cuts are going to come from, like I say, we've been paying off a heck of a lot of former managers, players. So we've got a drain there that won't happen again. We've got you know, extra revenue from commercial. There's some cuts which, you know, trimmings that, you know, with my accountant's head on, that I can see around the place that we're going to do. I don't really want to be too specific at the moment, because I don't really want to be seen as coming in as an axeman. And I think there's probably not so much cuts, but maybe juggling with the playing budget. We've been massively unlucky this year with injuries.
you know, long-term injuries that we've had at the start of the season where we've had to bring more players into cover positions. And that's probably cost us more on the playing budget than we'd initially budgeted for at the start of the season. And that's probably got to be looked at for the 19-20 year. Yes, sir.
Well, you keep going on about the commercial side, but you're obviously paying staff on the commercial side, so do you think they're not doing the job properly?
I don't specifically think it's doing the job properly. I think it's maybe direction. You know, if I sit on the other side of the fence, I'm a business, and I see how people come to me commercially and how they sell and how maybe selling should be done. And I think we're maybe just doing it in the wrong manner. You can't maybe go out to someone and say, pay this to sponsor that. It's a bit of a different thing now. It's a bit of, you know, bring someone in on a £250 ground board, treat them to a bit of hospitality. The football's a product, come and enjoy your day, and then maybe do a bit more next year. But just by treating the people right as well. But I think it's direction as well, and that's one point we've been speaking to Jamie about, one of the directors. You know, in terms of having conversations with people, going to speak to businesses. I think there's been maybe like. One business told me I don't have a ground board at Barrow football anymore. They just didn't come to renew it, and that's no slight on Andrew or anyone there. It's maybe just who was doing it the commercial role at the time just didn't do it, and it's just one of those things. But it's just about having conversations again. Yes.
You're interim chairman.
Yeah.
And you've got a business to run.
Yeah.
How much time can you allocate to the football because you've got a business as well?
Yeah, the business, obviously, you know, in my business there's 50 odd folk. I have a role to do in that business, which obviously can't be taken by anybody else. So I pretty quickly got to get. It's the day-to-day running of this place that the role that Andrew does that needs to be taken. The sort of the strategic stuff in sort of delivering the investments, I can fit in around my role. Yes, sir.
Depending on your jigsaw, and obviously we can't see who will be putting money in, and you're the interim chairman at present with a clear mandate to make a transition.
Yeah.
And you want to stay involved as a director. Are you potentially open, does your lifestyle allow, would you like to, etc., maintain a chair role moving forward, or do you see, I can't maintain this long term, but I will see us over the line and drop back to a lesser role, if you will?
Ask me in a month. No, who knows? You know, it's like I said, I'm very open. You know, doing this role was not an ego trip. I said that to Paul Casson. When you're on these committees, it's not. It's about delivering results. You know, and if I can deliver this, and and someone doesn't want me, and they say, you know, step down, I will do. There'll be no hard feelings. You know, I'll have done my bit, and if anyone ever wants me again, I'm here. You know, I'll always be here as a sponsor. You know, I'll always be here as a club accountant if they want me. But if they wanted me as chair, it's something I'd consider. Depends how well we get on.
Paul, I'm not being nosy or anything, but how much do you want to Margaret? How much do they, you know, I don't think anybody in here, because I mean, I know I'm a woman, but I get such a banter from people today, we're not doing very well. What's up with them this week and all that business? But how much in here does it cost just for the rates alone? Because people won't know that.
Andrew will tell you the rates. What the rates?
It's a lot.
£9,000.
Yeah, for the council tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, £8,000.
Right, well, there you have it, you see. Well, a lot of people in here tonight won't think you pay that.
I think there's probably a lot that people don't know that we do pay. You know, that there's a lot of cost involved in running a football club. Yeah, it's not just a case of gates in, players out. You know, there's a lot of cost.
When you say you're open, will that become available to people of Barrow, not just supporters? Will you get that sort of over to folk, how much the club does need the input from businesses and individuals?
Yeah, definitely. You know, that's one thing we're saying at the forum tonight. That's one thing that we're going to be putting out there. You know, we don't now have a millionaire owner, and so, you know, we've always needed you. You know, it's not the case, but it's about not just needing you. It's about you guys wanting to be involved as well, and us making it an environment where you can be involved. You know, it's respect's a dual thing, isn't it? You know, you get it, but you get it both ways, and we desperately want you in, but But you know, you guys got to want to come in as well. But we've got to make it that environment where you can come in. Yes.
You were talking about the cash burn before.
Yeah.
What proportion of the cash burn of these players and ex-managers that we're paying off monthly?
About 25%. No, they are tailing off. They are, like I said, they are tailing off. Yeah, it could be. He'd have sorted them. I think, are we done? Go on.
Are you enjoying it?
It's a difficult question, that. Have I had regrets? Could start singing, couldn't I? I am enjoying it. There's a pressure to deliver. You know, it's a town football club. The radio, I don't know if anyone heard the radio earlier, talk about building you up. It was like putting a noose around my neck. The guy said, "Oh, Paul Hornby, a local respected accountant, wouldn't have put himself on the line if he couldn't deliver." Oh, brilliant. Cheers for that.
Wait till the evening mail starts.
I might need a helicopter. But yeah, to answer your question, I am enjoying it. I think I had 3 sleepless nights, and one thing you'll find with me is that if something doesn't sit right and something doesn't feel right, I mull it over and I mull it over. And this one person wanting to come in doesn't sit right, and it's trying to get this jigsaw right in my head about getting investment in quick so we cover the cash burn, but making sure it's the right investment and making sure we still have time to discover the options whilst not blowing any money that we currently have. So this is the quandary that keeps me awake at night, by making sure that we don't blow any leads. Yes, sir.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
What's gone before, I think we all a vote of thanks to the Casson.
Oh, definitely. We certainly do.
It's a difficult one, that, Paul, because we had this scenario when Paul came in. We didn't really know Paul, we didn't know what his intentions were. But we went with it, didn't we? Sometimes you've got to take a gamble.
I think that's right. You know, your dad probably, was it 18 years of fan-based ownership with the Keens at the head of it. You'd had a huge run. I think before that we'd had Stephen Vaughan owning it in its entirety. Before that we had Bill McCulloch, and so you go through waves, don't you? You know, we've had 100% ownership, then we have fan base. Now we've had 100% ownership, and we've always kept round about Conference North or in the conference. We've never really gone any higher. We've never really gone any lower. So there's nothing really to be feared. We just need to make sure that, you know, and that's probably going back the last 35 years. We just need to make sure that, are we ready for a change? You know, or do we want this 100% owner? Yeah.
What I was thinking, I might be wrong here, but you're a Barrow lad.
Yeah.
Like me and everybody else up here. But you might get this fella come in and he'll buy it, then he might build houses on it.
Yeah, he could, and that's the big fear.
And that's what
You know,
I fear.
and you know, I wouldn't go and buy a football club in Manchester unless it was Manchester United, but. No, I wouldn't go and buy. You know, you've got to be naturally sceptical why someone would. You know, you don't make money in football, so why are you going to go and buy a team in the way I see it, you know, Barrow's quite parochial. We are who we are. We love being from Barrow. You know, why would anyone want to come to Barrow, the world's longest cul-de-sac? You know, why would anyone come up here to buy a football club? So you've got you know, especially one that you know struggles to break even. Well, what do you get from it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My last one, but this This was the easiest ride Andrew's ever had on that stage. So has Andrew enjoyed it?
There are moments that were enjoyable, and then there are moments where you have to travel down to Sutton on a cold Saturday, and people are yelling at you about your choices in life that aren't quite so fun. But no, I mean, I was talking to Matt from the Mail earlier. I think, you know, the next, for me, you know, it was a once in a lifetime experience, and I've said it before. You know, I got to do something that, you know, people in the States, people over here, people over the world would kill to have, right? To run a professional sports organization, and, you know, not only that, but one that means, you know, one that your family owns. So I've enjoyed it tremendously. There's, as I said, there's a lot that we would do differently if we could do it over again, and, you know, there are moments that hurt a lot, but, you know, the moments that mean so much wouldn't mean as much if you didn't have those downs. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see going back to civilian life, as I'm going to call it now, and you know, work for some big corporate entity, and you know, probably be a bit bored. So I'm not sure. You know, I'll come to appreciate it more and more, I think, as I go along, and I'm pretty sure that I'll miss it a lot. But yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Will it be the first result you'll call on a Saturday, though?
Well, I won't really need to look at it. Fortunately, you know, we'll be tuning in. I mean, my father doesn't listen on the radio, but I'll be listening every Saturday at 9 a.m. and checking out of work at 1:45 on Tuesday to listen to the Tuesday night matches. So, you know, mostly out of some twisted sense of you know, masochism that, you know, I know that, you know, Ian will win the trophy this year now, and I'll just go, damn it, why didn't I just stay for 6 more months? But no, I mean, it's you know, it's obviously was part of my dad's family and history. That's why I came back, and I know I speak for my brother and sister and cousins that it's all sort of deeply ingrained in us now. So, you know, whenever I'll go back home, and every time I meet someone in Dallas, Texas, who says they're a Man U fan or an Arsenal fan, I'll just laugh at them and just go, "You're just clowns," you know. Support a real football team like I do. So, yeah, that'll be the first one every day, no doubt about it.
Can I just say before we finish off, obviously, you know, I know a heck of a lot of people, and I've only started scratching the surface at the moment, but it's by no means, you know, a book of who Hornby knows who's going to bring in to buy this football club. If anybody knows anyone who you think might want to come and chat to me, or you think I don't know every business person in the town, you think someone who's a mad keen soccer fan, what am I doing? A mad keen football fan who might want to get involved, or, you know, tell them to pick up the phone. You know, my door is always open, you know, in terms of, you know, if anyone's got any sort of sensible offers or investment they want to put in, you know, like I say, I'm going to be speaking to a heck of a lot of people. Again, it's part of this jigsaw situation, in that we've got to be respectful for the people that we spoke to initially, because we don't know what stake they might want to take. They only want to take more or less. So then, obviously, there's this other investor. You know, so we can't go and flout it out all over. But if anyone does know anyone who might want to take a significant chunk, and we can sort of make this thing work with the 40 that we've got initially, you know, again, you know, let's keep all our options open, but work fast on this.
I think one of the big disappointments, Paul, is that BA system, as big a company as it is, contributes nothing.
Don't get me started on them. They do. Yeah, they do. And you know, take James Fisher as well. When we were down at Airbus Broughton for pre-season friendly, they had a ground board. We don't have a ground board off James Fisher. Yeah, head office here. My dad was chairman for X many years. We still can't get a ground board.
Have you approached? Has anybody actually approached them?
We did. The old commercial manager approached them. They approached quite a few of the big companies. I think the problem you find with the big companies is now it's all this social responsibility. You know, they'll maybe come and bring a table for 10 in corporate, which is great, you know, fine, you know, but let's do something. But they're not there to maybe, you know, and I think even, I'm switching to rugby again, but I think Whitehaven Rugby have suffered because of the Sellafield sponsorship, I believe, has ended. I think they used to get 50k a season off Sellafield. Well, that's massive. Yes.
Town have BE system sponsorship, because that's
really. There we go. Yes, sir.
So what are your timelines now then in terms of moving forward? It sounds like there's big decisions to make.
Yeah, we need to really start get moving this month, 6 weeks. We really need to know where we're heading in terms of, you know, even if the money's not in, but the plan, you know, the plan of, is it going to be investors, fans? There's definitely going to be some level of fan involvement, you know, and one thing I want to make clear here is that, you know, when I speak to the trust, if you know, the fans want to own we've talked about different percentage splits, but, you know, if we go down that route and publicise it straight away and then start, you know, raising the money, some of the money with the fans and the rest with the investors, we're going to scare this other guy off, but that's the decision we have to make and be brave and stick to it. Oh, yeah.
Who is the current commercial director/manager, and what responsibility are they going to play in, rather than cutting everything, cutting, in actually growing our income week to week to meet halfway?
Yeah, we don't have one at the moment. The commercial manager's gone.
Who was it?
Samantha Sharp. It's gone. I'll hold my hand up. I made that decision. You know, it's about doing things differently. We've got a commercial team in there, in terms of Georgia. We've got Anya there. You know, someone's already been on to me already. You know, I've been offered a commercial manager who's worked for Oldham, it just doesn't work for Barrow. You know, yeah, exactly. You know, it's not a case of sell. You know, you've got to understand the mentality of the people. You've got to know people. It's about the businesses. I know people who know everyone in Barrow, and they're going to help us out commercially. You know, it's about getting I'll do it myself. You know, my old adage was, you know, I could pick up the phone and get you 10 ground boards now. You know, but obviously, you know, you've got a commercial manager, and they had a remit, and they say, oh, we're going to get this sort of sponsorship in. But like I say, we're going to be. Jamie's going to step up to do some role as well, and you'll notice a big difference from Monday because we're out there.
When do we have this meeting?
It's 9:30 tomorrow. We're not inspiring confidence here, are we, guys? Sorry, Jim.
You've mentioned the Barrow Rugby a couple of times.
Yeah.
And what they've done. What relationship have you personally got with the Barrow Rugby?
I'm a sponsor down the rugby. I'm the club accountant down the rugby. You know, I know all the guys down there. I've known the previous regimes down there. I've got a lot of time for them. But there's no relationship in terms of I'm not a director there or.
Well, do you think there could possibly any future? It gets raised every now and then. The two boards coming together at some time, or at least try to work with each other.
I think John Rooney would be good down there to get the ball over the sticks, wouldn't he? You know, that's not in my remit. You know, that's it's to deliver the investment, and you know, it's to put a new board in place, and that, you know, ground share. These are all long-term things that will float around in the background forever, I guess. But that I'm not going there. Are we all finished, guys? Well, listen, thanks for coming. You know, I really appreciate your support. This is just the start. You know, the support it's got to continue. You know, moving forward, we need the town. We desperately need the town on board with this. You know, we've got to re-engage, and that's in terms of, you know, share ownership, which I'll speak to the trust about. In terms of sponsorship for, you know, on the commercial side. You know, it's everything. It's about bums on seats on Saturday. You know, go tell your friend, tell your neighbour, tell everyone. Let's not have these conversations with the taxi driver. Oh, you know, how's the soccer going? I used to come, but I don't go anymore. Well, start blooming coming, or you're not going to have a club. Thank you.